It's true, and I think it's a really important film, especially for now when we see, I think it's like 2/3 of the world is under authoritative government, right? I mean, we don't even know that. We live, for those of us here, we live in America. It almost happened, and we don't know that it can't happen again. So I think it's really important to see how it happens, right? And how, I don't know people's politics, but the former president wanted to sort of do the same thing, right? And put someone in for life and make sure that you had legislation that did that. But you talk about, what happened in Uganda and the violence and all of that. And I'm really curious for Moses, and I'm sure that you all had very much a lot to do with the making of the film as well, and came in on it when questions were coming up. But we don't mention anything about Idi Amin. You don't mention anything about the prior, this current dictator and what he's done and the violence. We see the violence, and thank you in a way for not showing all of that. But we know that it was worse.
Oh yeah.
Right. So I'm just curious about your choices on that. That we see this picture, we understand the picture, we get this picture, but we also know that Uganda has been underneath this rule for a very long time. So could you just talk a little bit about your choice on that and your choice to sort of show these pieces of the film in your lives, but also what you think about that and what you want people to take away?
Sure, I'll go first.
Thank you very much, and I'm very glad you asked that. I must say, I was disappointed about this film in the beginning, the first time I saw it. And my question to the directors and producers was, why did you have to make Museveni look so good? Because this film, in my view, makes Museveni look like an angel. Not even 5%, in my opinion, of the brutality and violence was shown in the film. So I was disappointed with the directors. I asked, why did you have, I thought we're using this film to show the crudeness of the Museveni regime. They explained to me and told me, well, in the West, if the violence is too much, it will be an absolute turn-off. But if I'm to discuss the brutality, for example, we have a brother there. His name is Ashraf Kasige. He was my personal cameraman that I used to move with on the car. He was shot in the head and I saw his brain. His skull smashed, that's why he wears that, because it was targeting me. Very many. In the house here, we have my brother Nubian Lee. You didn't see where his face was smashed and was bleeding. So many people were brutalized and the film did not show that. However, I understand when the directors explained to me that maybe if we went ahead and showed to the full extent of the brutality, maybe the violence would seem too medieval for the Western audience. So I must say that there's much, much more than that film. And as a matter of fact, when the cameras stopped, the action didn't stop. As we speak now, the brutality continues, the crackdown continues, the violations continue, the abductions continue, the killings continue. So it is ongoing. It was ongoing, it is ongoing up to now. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you absolutely did, yes.
Yeah, just in addition to what Bobi says. In fact, we didn't show Bobi and Babi the film until it was finished. Because we wanted, as documentary filmmakers, to be as honest as possible. And I, being on the ground, I totally understand his side of this opinion that the violence is not as much, because being there, experiencing that violence, it's very different from being outside, being present in that space, because there's violence every time. And it's happening around you, it's happening to your family members, to your friends, as we speak today, or as you see in the film, towards the end, towards the election, Bobi is in the kitchen and she says, our friends are in either of the three places, dead, disappeared, or in jail, and so many people, we do not know where they are until today. But it was a very conscious choice for us to also focus on their love story, their beautiful, hopeful story and the strength they have, and that also uplifts the story and the music, and and keeping hope. And because Ugandans are very, very hopeful people, and I think this is one of the reasons that Museveni has ruled us for so long, because we just love, and we welcome people, very hospitable, and you see that in the film as well, very courageous, and but yes, thank you.
Thank you, Moses. There's this part you asked, you said, what would we want people to take away from this film? So we want the people who watch this film to know that Bobi and I are not the heroes in this film. They're the people whose names are not known, whose lives are not shown, whose struggles we don't see, but that the main players in this. It's simply because the cameras are on us, the eyes are on us, but we ride on the wings of so many that they don't see. Maybe you'll see some in the film, but because the film has a bigger portion of our lives, you might not get to know how much energy they put in pushing the struggle for freedom in Uganda. This film is not about the two of us. It's about the people of Uganda and their struggle for freedom. Thing I need people to take away from this film is the beauty of Uganda. Uganda is a very beautiful country. If you noticed during the campaign, we went through different kinds of cultures, different dance, different types of food, beautiful nature, different beautiful people, happy young people. So we want the world to know that Uganda is one of the youngest countries in the world. 80% of the population is less than 35 years old. And we are an innovative, happy, energetic, and very, very tremendously willing to go as far as we can to have our freedom. The last thing I want people to take away from this film. The last thing I want people to take away from this film is the strength of the women and the involvement that they have in fighting for freedom in our country.
Isn't that in every movement, though? Right? Isn't that in every movement? It was that in the civil rights movement. It was the women behind the men who were really pushing that struggle.
It's always the women.
Always.
Always. I want them to know that the women are no longer the cheerleaders. We are not the no, not anymore. We are fighting for those positions, and we are winning the men at it, and we are doing well in leadership. I want them to know that the women are taking over you saw in the film, they are on the security team, running with the guys, fighting with the police head on, regardless of the energy they're doing it. So we want the people to know that the girls and the women in Africa, especially in Uganda, are strongly involved in the fight.
Thank you. Yes, that deserves a win. You touched on a couple of things that I wanted to talk about, and it's true. You can see the joy and the pain as well in this film, but I wanted to sort of move this towards you, Bobi, when you're a musician and the music in this film is a character in and of itself, right? And Moses, I know that you and Chris probably really thought about that, but you were using music and lyrics even before you started this fight and entered into the political arena to really get your messages across. So can you talk about how important that was in your beginning of your career, but also how important it has been in the struggle that you all have been pushing for the freedom of Uganda?
Thank you. The music, it's been always the music setting the stage. It is the music in the beginning that endeared me to the people. It's the music that myself and my musical comrades that we used to communicate, and it's music that the regime discovered how powerful it is. You will notice that today my music is banned in Uganda, and that is because of how powerful music is. On the front row here, we have two musicians that had to run away from Uganda. We have my brother Ronnie Banton there, and we have my brother Kapalaga here. Those are revolutionary artists that I believe if they were in Uganda, they would be dead meat already. So it's the music, it's the power of that music. And glad enough, I and my team recognized the power of that music, and we used it. We continue to use it. So that music was a door opener. We live in a generation that is tired of the usual political talk. To the extent we were able to endear them to their politics because we made it entertaining. So it is the power of the music that we have rode on to the present day, to ride on continuously until we get there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was so beautiful, those songs and that music. And so I want to go back to something that Barbie said in the beginning of the film when you said, how can you be Robert and Bobby Vine at the same time? So my question is he two different people, or have those personalities merged?
We are yet to see another person. Bobby evolves every day, and it excites me because I live with a different person anytime. And I'm excited for what is coming ahead. Bobby has so many personalities. Sometimes he merges them, sometimes he separates them, and he's very good at that. Yeah.
All right, great.
She just gave me away.
So you're all those different types of people and even more. So one of the other things too, Barbie, that I wanted to ask you, and I know we only have a couple more minutes, is one of the things that I loved about the beginning of this movie, Moses, is that we really get to follow their love story, right? And we get to see Barbie really sort of like just fall in love with Bobby, and the two do together. But I'm wondering how difficult it was for you. I mean, you have a master's in human rights. You are a published author. You had your children that you really had to think about. And so how difficult was that for you to leave them, to be fearful of them, knowing that Bobby was this political figure? He even says, I could have a hit on my head at any time. How did you manage that? How did you manage that and also help with the struggle, knowing that, your family could be in danger at any moment?
It would be so easy for me to say, I manage. But I don't manage. It's hard. It is hard for anybody, regardless of my academic credentials and all that, but it's hard for any mother to be separated from their children unwillingly. Even willingly, right? Now they're in a hotel, I'm here, but my heart is there. And it is really hard letting your husband go in a place where he might not return. So you're always in the mood of, how soon am I going to be a widow? Or will I be, will I not be? Now, that's stressful enough. Sometimes I say I need a psychiatrist. I need somebody to talk to. Yet, but I'm happy I have a big family. I have very many friends, and the other thing that strengthens me is the women that even suffer more than I do. Because there are women whose husbands already disappeared. There are women whose children are already killed. There are women whose children were shot at in their faces. They are looking at them and babies. They are shot in broad daylight and they haven't received any justice. So me being weaker than that woman is actually not fair. So I have to be strong. So I am grateful that I still have all of them alive. And we count every day as it comes.
Right. And I love the ending of the film when all the kids come back and you're back together as a family again. And I think that's it just says so much about what your hope is for Uganda, that you came back, that Uganda is still your home. So I just want to close because I got the 2-minute sign. So I read that this film stands as a clarion against authoritarianism, and I think that that is so true. And I want to thank you and Chris and the two of you for sharing this film, for sharing your lives, for giving us hope, for giving people in Uganda hope that you are not going to give up, And I think that that's one thing in this film that we really see is your perseverance and your love for a country that you know at some point in time is going to turn. And you guys are going to be there for it.
Thank you. I appreciate. I don't, first and foremost, look at it in the beginning as love of country. I look at it as the refusal for anybody to define me or to tell me what I will be and what I know I will not be. So, in the beginning, it's fighting for my personal freedom. I refuse to be a slave in my home. Only to turn around and see that what I speak is actually resonating with millions more. They say, yeah, that is what we're saying to. I say, oh, so that's what you're saying. Then I start speaking for everybody else. But for starters, I speak for myself. And I'm just glad that we happen to speak for everybody else. You know, I must also use this opportunity, first and foremost, to extend my appreciation to Nat Geo. It is such an honor to have our story, the Ugandan story, told to the world on Nat Geo. It's not every day. When I go to some conferences, I meet people from authoritarian countries going through hell. I met a brother who comes from who escaped prison in North Korea. Oh my God, horrifying stories. Brothers from Central African Republic, from Congo, from Cameroon, from many authoritarian places. Unfortunately, they suffer the same way. Many others suffer even much more, but they don't have a voice. I see this as an opportunity. That's why we decided to grab this opportunity, and if it means dying, we'll die trying to make a difference. So I'm just glad that we were able to tell this story. At least we won't just disappear in the dark. And I also want to take this opportunity to send a message to our American brothers and sisters. What you just saw here, all the brutality that is happening, you are paying for it. You are sponsoring it. You might know, you might not know. But the United States government gives General Museveni up to $1 billion every year. That is exactly what he uses it for. So we believe that at least you guys have a voice, unlike us. You can reach out to your leaders, your congressmen and women, and ask them to review their policies on Uganda. We're not asking for so much. We're not asking you to come to Uganda to save us, but just don't sponsor our death. And you can, if you ensure that your leaders put conditions on the cooperation with Uganda. Conditions are as simple as the basic, values that we share as humanity: respect for democracy, respect for the rule of law, and respect for human rights. That alone, we can fight. We know that no oppressed people can be oppressed forever, and our dictator is actually way in his 80s. So we are sure if we don't get shot tomorrow, we will outlive him. We will win him easily. But we cannot win $1 billion. You cannot fight against $1 billion. You cannot fight against American guns. So please don't sponsor our operation. Kindly reach out to your leaders and ask them. We have the internet. You can tag them on Twitter and all that. But that on the side, we really appreciate the humanity that we get. We really appreciate the words of encouragement. We have so many brothers and sisters here. And finally, I also want to salute our comrades, those people in red berets. They keep us going. Those Ugandans, they send messages of hope. They call us at 3 a.m. in the morning. Are you still alive? So we are there, and we're not going to give up. You will come back to a free country. I can say that without fear of contradiction.
Thank you so much. And that is the power of media. And so I'm so glad that this film has been made. I'm so glad that you all are traveling with it, that you're being able to have these conversations in the U.S. so that we do understand what is actually really going on. So thank you both very much for being here. Thank you, Moses, for the film that you made. You can say, yep, absolutely. And good luck on your travels to the rest of the U.S.
Thank you. Just finally, one thing I would like to say is this film, what it does very well is to show the fragility of democracies and what could happen if a democracy falls into totalitarianism. And another thing, highlighting leaders like Bobi Wine and his wife Bobi. We hope that the world can stand with leaders like Bobi. Because for the longest time, just adding on what Bobi said, the world continues to stand with Museveni. 37 years of dictatorship. But when we see leaders that are forward-thinking and, fighting for freedom of expression and the freedom of a people, I think it would be terrible if the world does not stand with such leaders. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.